All right, thank you. I can see two more questions to you, and actually we are already starting the open Q&A session, so I will keep going. I just want to check if we have our other speakers, but I can see Grzegorz with us. I know that Kuba is also here, also Jarek Trzaska, and I think we have also Sean from yesterday and DJ. So guys, feel free to ask questions to each other. Also, to everyone, you can ask any questions right now in the chat box. Also, I have some questions for you for this panel. So yeah, so let's move forward with this. But as a start, two more questions to you, Volodymyr. One, if the centralized load planning concept is so popular nowadays, why do not all airlines opt for this?
Yes, you're right. This concept is very popular, and I know many airlines that have their own CLC centers. They either have their own CLC centers or they outsource this job to dedicated CLC providers. But not all airlines do this, and it's not just about the systems, weight and balance systems they're using. Yeah, of course, that is probably the major factor, that legacy systems are not really suitable for CLC. But believe me, even airlines who use modern systems, they not necessarily have a CLC, and there are quite a few reasons for that. For example, as I mentioned when I answered the previous question, it is sometimes very hard to recognize the costs, opportunities, benefits. It's hard to measure them. And one of the most obvious costs that airlines recognize are personnel costs and ground handling costs, right? So because those are direct costs, for example, and and usually ground handling costs, ground handling it's really hard to get those ground handling discounts, for example, right? So for example, if as an airline, you negotiate a new agreement with a ground handling provider, and you say, okay, guys, we're gonna do centralized load planning, the in-house load planning, so can we get a discount? And can you guess what is the most frequent answer? No, you can do whatever you want, but you don't get the discount. And it's especially the case with monopolistic ground handling agencies. So, for example, if at the airport there's only one provider, right, and an airline simply doesn't have a choice. So, or the other case might be when an airline is happy with the ground handling fees. That includes the local load planning, right? So, for example, if an airline receives a good discount, so they can say, oh, okay, we're happy with the fees, please go on and perform load planning for us, we're okay with that. Because, ground handling companies, all of them have their own load planning stuff. Well, nearly all of them, right? And these people need to have a job, right? So and ground handling companies still need to pay them for these jobs. So it's a very complex topic. But another thing is that quality is not always considered, right? So, and for example, most airlines have their own specific requirements, their own ground operations manuals, and depending on their fleet, on their network, they might have very different procedures, And for example, if a local ground handling company at a certain, I don't know, very large airport, let's say, which handles 100 airlines, uh, do you think it's really feasible for a ground handling agency to get familiar with all requirements of all airlines? Not necessarily. Believe me, in my experience, there are a lot of issues with that. So when you do this in a centralized way, the quality is much better. But again, not always it's possible to recognize, measure benefits, costs, and opportunities. One of the major issues in the airline industry. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you so much. And one more question from DJ. What about the safety aspect? Shouldn't pilots be relieved from preparing a load sheet on a tablet during the last minute before flight, but receive such?
Definitely. I think definitely pilots should be relieved from that because, and honestly, I don't believe that many airlines do this, right? So I know some airlines, especially some low-cost carriers, They do this on tablets, but it's about time before departure. So usually pilots can receive the final information, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes before departure. So, and it still takes a couple of minutes, at least a couple of minutes. Even if they have a solution on the tablet, it still takes a couple of minutes. And as I mentioned in my presentation, one of the reasons for flight delays is the calculation of takeoff performance, which takes those 2-3 minutes. It's not much, but it happens on every flight. And the same is with load sheets. So I believe that this job should be outsourced to the exception-based tools like smart loads, right? So, and let those solutions do the job automatically and not increase the workload on pilots more and more. Believe me, those people are very, very busy. All airlines tend to, most airlines tend to give additional job to pilots, right? And then simply and those people need to stay fresh and ready for departure and not get embarrassed with a lot of requirements. I hope that answered the question.
Sure, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Volodymyr, I guess that's it. I don't see any more questions to you. So maybe let's circle back to questions that we had for Jakub before, and he said that he will come back with the answers to us. So Kuba, I hope you're with us. I can see.
I am.
Yeah. So Kuba, first question was that can you explain something symbols used from airport approach chart/maps?
Yes, so I will share a screen one more time.
Go ahead.
It's the picture from my presentation about the Paro International Airport in Bhutan.
I cannot
So
see your
here
screen though.
you see or not?
I can. Let me. Okay, now I guess I hope everyone can see your screen.
Let me
I can
check
see it.
because you can see, but the another I don't think so. As I see on the another laptop, maybe that one will work.
Paulina, can you stop sharing the screen?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, sure, it's working. So here you have the approach chart for Para International Airport in Bhutan. At the beginning, you have some normal heading information like where is this airport, what kind of ICAO or kind of IATA code there is, as well the information about the approach, what kind of approach is it. Then we have the communication. Here you have, I don't know if you see it. There is a communication with Paro Tower 120.300. Then we have the information, briefing information about the approach. So there is the AirNav approach with the mandatory altitude on waypoint PR 816 with altitude 138 100 feet. Information about the airport elevator, information about the misapproach in the text. So you can see as well this misapproach in the chart on the right side. Here you have the map that, for example, the plane can come from the west or from the south or from the east, and the approach is starting here in waypoint PR 816 with altitude 13800 feet and maximum nodes of 145. Here you have as well the information, briefly describe as well how it looks like when you would like to go to the landing. Here you have the airport. If you have any other question related to the charts, maybe you can put on the chat.
Thank you, Kuba. And another question, and I think maybe that's not only a question to you. Maybe our other speakers can also answer. The other question was, are there any airport naming superstitions?
It was funny because I spoke about it with one of our colleagues from Alitalia in the weekend. As you know, we have a football game in Gdansk, Poland versus Italy. And I was able to provide the seat map for these flights. So I asked her why there is no row 13 and 17. And she said, yeah, because the row number 13, it's unlucky number. And for Italian guys, number 17 is as well unlucky. So we cannot, we don't have in our plane the rows 13 and 17. The another one, it's about the passenger. When the passenger comes to the plane, they always touch the plane because they think that there will be lucky flight, there will be no crash, etc., etc. And the another thing that the same is doing the pilots, but they are doing the same with the nose of the planes. Um, Another thing is that many pilots will talk to their planes before and during takeoff, almost like a prayer. The most common phrases I've discovered are simple but meaningful. Take care of me and bring me back to safety. So that's I think the most uh, sorry uh,
Actually, Nazin is asking
superstitions.
how can we touch the nose of a plane?
A pilot can, that's not a problem. If there will have any technical issue, uh, there is, for example, airsters coming to the nose and they check, and as well they can touch it. So that's not a problem.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I don't see any more questions in the chat box at the moment. But I think I would like to circle back to the questions that were asked at the beginning of the day today after Michal's presentation. I think you were all, at least most of you were present during Michal's presentation. And I think that would be a pretty good question also to Jarek and to you, Kuba. But of course, feel free anyone to answer. Airports are designed in such a way that you spend time in duty free shops, etc., and spend money, so the airport could earn it. It seems in COVID times it would be best if you can go straight from security to gate. Are you aware of any current airport redesign so that could happen? Are airports ready to earn less on passenger spending due to that? So Michał briefly said that there is an option to maybe do some shopping by using their mobile phones. But I was wondering if you maybe have any more information about that, or if you can share your point of view in this matter.
So maybe I will start. As I was as well the passenger in the COVID time, I was in Larnaca Airport. I'm working as well on Gdańsk Airport, so I know how it looks like. After the security control, where it's them measuring the temperature of each passenger and as well the staff, there is the information in whole the regulation of the airlines that if you have COVID, of if you are sick or something, please do not take this plane and take the another one, because it's necessary for all the passenger and for the staff. So if we are speaking about the duty-free shops, which are on the airside, so after the security control, after the temperature measuring, I think it's safety to buy something, to eat something in the restaurant. So it's not necessary to close it or to rebuild the terminal because of the COVID. It will be, I think, for 1 year, maybe two, but not for the next, for example, 10 years. So I think it's a good to have the duty free shop because many passengers buy something, especially that there are as well the employees who is working in these duty free shops and they need the money to survive.
Okay, thank you, Kuba. Anyone else would like to answer the question? Okay, so I have actually one more. Also, it's a question from today's morning. Could we come back to treat a person as trusted, so not all have to go to security? And what Michal said, that this is kind of a utopia, and this kind of approach comes with a lot of responsibility, and he doubt that we can. But I was wondering, what is your point of view from the airport perspective? Do you see any opportunities for innovation that this kind of approach can be implemented in the future?
Maybe again, I will speak something about it.
Go ahead.
I think that the security needs to be on the airport, especially after 11 September 2001. Um, right now, there is a lot of systems which can check if the passenger or the staff has prohibited items. For example, I think maybe in Europe as well, but in United States, I have the security control in the capsule. So they scanning via RTG my body to check if I didn't have any prohibited items. So maybe in the future there will be any applications, maybe any systems which help us to to do the security control as quick as it will be possible, because sometimes, especially in the morning time at 5:30 or 6 at Gdańsk airport, maybe not today or yesterday, but let's say about normal time without the COVID, there is 12, 13 planes which depart from Gdańsk, and there is a lot of people. So sometimes I had once this kind of situation that I woke up at 5 a.m. and I have my flight at 6 a.m. So there wasn't the time to do something extra, and I just begged someone on the security control because the traffic was really huge, and I asked if it's possible to do the security control via, for example, fast track or something. So I as well checked that there was the information that they are looking for me as a last passenger. So the person said, okay, that's not a problem. You can do it because you miss your plane. So maybe in the future there will be a systems that will do it as quick as it will be possible, but for that moment I don't think so that they will just put out all the security from the airports.
Sure, sure. Thank you.
Just one thing I wanted to add to that was that flying to, for example, Warsaw and then onto Gdansk or to Krakow, sometimes I would arrive in Warsaw, de-embark the plane, go into the terminal, then walk two gates further, and then step on the bus again and go to the same plane and meet the same crew. So there is some. Well, I was just wondering why are people that are with this through flights, why does everybody has to go from board, not just let the remaining people on board and just have those 10 people come to the aircraft? So why this check is supposed to be there is, to my opinion, something superficial.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
And always very funny. And always very funny to see the same people. Yeah.
Thank you.
There is a true DJ that there is this kind of situation, especially in the hubs. As I see that sometimes you are flying from Gdansk to Warsaw with one plane, and on the another plane you will see the same crew because they have the schedule.
Thank you, Kuba. Thank you,
Yep,
DJ, very
thank you.
much. Okay, I muted myself, sorry. I do have one more question actually for Volodymyr about his presentation. Volodymyr, how often do weight and balance related incidents occur? What are the most common reasons?
Okay, yeah, can you hear me? Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, actually, in fact, not very often, right? Not so often, to be honest with you. However, I mean, in terms of accidents, it's not that often. I can tell you several examples that are probably the most prominent ones. If you know, I think in 2003, there was a flight on the Beechcraft 1900. That was a flight from Air Midwest in the US. I guess it was a domestic, very short domestic flight. And I remember that there, the main reason for a crash was incorrect passenger weights used. Basically, after that accident, the FAA revised the standard passenger weights because the weights that were used, they were very, very, very old. And, you know, people gain some weight over the last decades, right? So unfortunately, that caused the crash because for small airplanes like Beechcraft, it is very, very essential. So it was overweight, I guess, and it was tail heavy. So the center of gravity was far beyond the certified limits. Another example that I have in my mind, it was a cargo flight on Boeing 747 freighter. It was a flight from somewhere in the US, I guess it was Connecticut, to Spain via Halifax in Canada. And basically, the problem was that the load sheet, when the flight, okay, basically the aircraft arrived to Halifax from a relatively short flight from the US, and it was about to fly to Spain, so a much longer flight. And the load sheet was used from the previous flight, and the difference was over 100 tons. And what actually happened then is that the flight crew used the incorrect, much lower takeoff weight for performance calculations. And basically, well, they applied the reduced thrust or derated thrust, and basically the aircraft was not able to take off, and it crashed just after the runways, so unfortunately. And also, you might probably remember, I guess it was 7 years ago in 2013, when another Boeing 747 freighter crashed in Afghanistan because military vehicles were loaded and they were not properly secured. And basically, they shifted at takeoff. They shifted to the aft part of the cargo deck, and the airplane unfortunately crashed. And this year, and maybe you saw it in the news because it was, I guess, in early 2020, there was a Wizz Air flight on Airbus A321 from London Luton to Prague. And I've just seen a couple of days ago in the news, I saw that the investigation revealed that the passengers were not seated according to the load sheet, according to the weight and balance information. Basically, they changed the airplane from A320 to A321, the longer one. And in fact, the aft part, so those additional seats that were now available on A320, those additional rows, I don't know exactly which rows were that, probably 35 to 40 or something like that. So they were empty. But the passenger service didn't know, passenger handling company did not receive those passengers, and this caused the very, very extreme takeoff, because when pilots basically tried to take off, they experienced issues. So it was a very, very serious incident. And you know, in my experience, I've seen a lot of different things. For example, when the whole bus with passengers was left on ground, it's hard to imagine, right? So if you imagine that you're a passenger, you're sitting in the bus and you're about to go to your airplane, and and you arrive to your parking position, and you see that your airplane has departed. And that, believe me, it sounds funny, but in fact, it's a serious weight and balance incident when you don't have 30 or 40 or more passengers on board that are recorded in the documents. For example, but really, in fact, one of the most frequent reasons for weight and balance related incidents is verbal communication. So verbal instructions, verbal load confirmation. So believe me, those incidents there are a lot of them, but not all of them become publicly become published, right? So not many people know about them, but it happens unfortunately quite often that if, for example, the real center of gravity of the aircraft is as much more forward than manifested in the documentation, passengers will not recognize it, but the flight crew will. Believe me, the flight crew will. When the runway is ending and the aircraft is not responding, those are very, very, very serious issues. But according to the statistics, I guess there was a study that said that the weight imbalance related accidents are 8 times more likely to happen with freighter airplanes. So yeah. Yeah, and in my experience, there was also a case where on Boeing 737-300 freighter, there was one position with cargo where 10 was missed. So in fact, it was 2 tons, but 10 was forgotten somewhere. It was lost. So it was the 200 kilos were manifested. So and the aircraft was really, really noise heavy and barely took off. So yeah, I have a lot of other examples, but I'm not sure that we have time for all of them.
You can go ahead if you have anything else.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, another very, very frequent thing is that the loading instruction reports are filled late, because basically that's a document. I'm not sure that everyone is familiar with what this document is, but basically that's a document which states where loads need to be loaded. For example, cargo goes into compartment number 2, baggage goes into compartment number 3, and so on and so forth. And this document needs to be completed, or basically it consists of 2 parts: instructions and report. And ramp agents, so people on the ground who supervise the loading process, they have to report the actual loading as it goes, not after the flight departure, right? Unfortunately, many ramp agents they do not follow this procedure, especially with legacy weight and balance systems, which do not have this check. In modern weight and balance systems like Smart Load, it's just not possible to issue the final load sheet before unless the the actual loading is confirmed. And believe me, there were a lot of incidents related to that. Sorry, you had a question? No? Okay, sorry. And
I think I have the comment to you that
sure.
I know as well a ramp agent that many grounding companies has a problem with the turnaround process, which, for example, for Wizz or for Ryanair, it's around 25 to 30 minutes. So they need to do it as quick as possible. They need to bring the load sheets to the captain as well to check it, to make the LMC, and it takes a time. So I think that they do it after the takeoff because there is no time to do it. And I think it's wrong because people should do it with whole criteria which you have in the ground handling manual.
Yeah. You're right. That's a very good comment. And believe me, if passengers if passengers worked on the ramp, they would probably be more afraid of flying. Well, I'm kidding, of course. With modern weight and balance system, it's not a big deal. But yeah, as you described, some airlines, yeah, I have this issues. Many airlines, I should say, honestly. And there are also because I worked for an airline in the past, and when you're sitting at the headquarters and you're designing complex, sophisticated, advanced procedures, and you think about how to save money for an airline, and so on, and how to enhance the safety, and then one of your colleagues goes to some remote airport just to check with how things are going, how procedures are followed. And when he comes back, he basically tells me, oh, you know what? There is no loading supervisor at that airport. So there is no one who actually checks the loading. And believe me, that sounds very, very astonishing. And those things unfortunately happen. So airlines need to be very, very careful with this, because again, passengers do not notice those things, but flight crews do. So yeah. And the ground stability, by the way, is another thing which as I mentioned in my presentation, it gained popularity over the last years because airplanes become longer, the number of seats increases, and the boarding is done by zones. So, and all this leads to those pictures that you saw in my presentation.
Okay, guys, thank you. Thank you so much for the answer and for the discussion. I don't see any more questions in the chat box, so I guess it's the right moment to ask actually you, our speakers, if you have questions to each other, or maybe some last thoughts you would like to throw at the end.
I see that Nazin asked me about if the pilots name their planes like Air Force pilots do. I don't think so. However, in Norwegian Air Shuttle, there is some aircraft which has the image of any known person from Norway on the tail, so they recognize this kind of airplanes on this image.
Jakob, hi. Sorry, I wasn't able to join until now. Today, I've been busy doing other things. But just to follow up on that, in my experience, pilots, yeah, they do not name the planes like you said in civil aviation, but they always refer to them as ladies. So they're always she. And also in some of the naming conventions, just going back to some of the passenger stories that maybe Volodymyr touched on. There was a plane in the UK registered Golf Papa India Delta Sierra that's no longer with us. It had a very honourable funeral in 2008. It went to the aeroplane graveyard in the States, and the acronym was Passengers in Deep Shit. So that was because of its technical record over here in the UK. So yeah, some planes do get named, but not for the maybe not for the right reasons. But that's just to add a little bit of a humorous story from my experience.
So I have one aircraft as well. It's called Mike Oscar Charlie November Yankee. So in Polish it means strong, like mocne. So everyone knows that if mocne is flying, that it will be a strong aircraft.
Oh, so it's the opposite of GPIDs. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys, for sharing. And Sean, it's really good to see you. So really, yeah, Nazin just said great stories. I do agree. So okay, any other questions, comments? I don't see anything in the chat box, and I do not hear anything. So I suppose that brings our conference to an end. I hope you enjoyed all the sessions and found it as interesting and valuable as I did. And once again, we are really sorry about the last presentation for all the technical difficulties. We managed to fix it. So Kuba, once again, thank you so much for your help. And just to let you know, we have been recording all presentations and we will upload them on the Invest in Pomerania YouTube channel soon. So please stay tuned. Also, I would like to ask you to share your feedback with us. You can do it by using Google Forms link, which, yeah, nothing, just send it. You can find it in the chat box, and also you will receive it via email, I think by tonight. And of course, survey is anonymous. So, so please go ahead, shoot us with anything you want. I guess on behalf of the whole team, I would like to say thank you to our speakers for finding some time to join us and provide your presentations. And big thank you to our partners for making this event happen. Also, I would like to thank all of you for your participation and all the questions, and that you stayed with us for the both days. This conference was only the beginning of the Aviation Hub journey. We have so much more planned for you, so please stay tuned and wait for news to come. If you will have any questions, you can email us or visit our website. So let's stay in touch, and hopefully we will see each other at next year's conference. And if the situation will allow, it won't be an online event, but we will actually meet in person. So fingers crossed for the COVID situation to get better soon. So once again, great thank you to everyone, and have a wonderful evening.